So if you own an EV, or you're thinking about getting one, you've probably spent a lot of time thinking about battery life and where the next charging station is. But it turns out there's this hidden problem that's catching a ton of drivers completely off guard, and it's happening right where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, so if you look at all the data on what makes drivers happy or unhappy, what do you think is the #1 unexpected complaint from people who just switched to an electric vehicle? Is it range anxiety, the cost of charging, something else entirely?
Well, it turns out, pretty surprisingly, it's not the battery, it's the tires. EV owners are realizing they're just shredding through their original set of tires way, way faster than they ever did with their old gas cars. And yep, it's causing a lot of frustration.
And look, this isn't just a few people talking. This comes directly from a brand new study from J.D. Power, their 2024 Original Equipment Tire Study. They talked to over 31,000 new car owners and found this growing gap in satisfaction, all because of how fast these tires are wearing out. So what in the world is going on here?
To really get it, we've got to dive into the basic physics that make EVs so different from, a regular gas-powered car.
It really boils down to two main things. First up, weight. Those huge, heavy battery packs make electric vehicles a lot heavier, and that puts a ton of extra, constant strain on the tires. And second, torque. You know when you hit the accelerator in an EV and it just goes? Well, you're getting 100% of that power instantly. That amazing, silent launch puts a massive amount of immediate stress right on the tire tread.
And here's the real kicker, the psychological part of it. The study found that new EV owners just assume their tires will last about as long as they did on their old gas cars. So when they don't, that gap between expectation and reality leads straight to disappointment and, of course, lower satisfaction scores. It's a perfect example of new tech clashing with our old habits.
Now, this problem is much bigger than just what's happening in your driveway. It's actually a massive headache for car companies and tire manufacturers. They're basically caught in this high-stakes balancing act, trying to solve an engineering puzzle that EVs created. This quote from Ashley Idgar over at J.D. Power just hits the nail on the head. See, on one side, car makers are obsessed with getting every last mile of range out of the battery. To do that, they need tires with really low rolling resistance, tires that just glide over the road. But the softer rubber you need for that efficiency, well, it's just not as durable. So you end up with this brutal trade-off. Do you give people more range, or do you give them tires that actually last? Right now, getting both at the same time is basically the holy grail of tire engineering.
So keeping that huge challenge in mind, which tire brands are actually doing the best job of walking this tightrope? The J.D. Power study gives us a fantastic look at the top performers based on what real owners are saying.
And before we even dive into the charts, just think about this stat for a second. Michelin has been #1 in the luxury category for 21 years in a row. That is just an incredible run. It really says something about their engineering. So let's start right there with the luxury segment, where, let's be honest, expectations for a smooth, quiet ride are about as high as they get.
And yeah, no surprise here, Michelin is sitting at the top with a score of 834, comfortably above the average. Goodyear and Continental are really close for that #2 spot, but Michelin has a very clear lead.
All right, so how do things look for the biggest part of the market? Just your everyday passenger car.
We're seeing that Michelin dominance again, leading the pack with an 823. Goodyear puts in another really strong performance for second, and it's pretty cool to see Kumho breaking into the top 3, just squeaking past the segment average.
Okay, for all the drivers out there who want a little more thrill, we've got the Performance Sports segment, where it's all about grip and handling.
Whoa, just look at that gap. Michelin isn't just winning here, they are running away with it. They scored a massive 833, which is 24 points above the average. Pirelli and Goodyear are rounding out the top 3, but they are a distant second and third.
And finally, let's look at the incredibly popular truck and utility vehicle segment. This is where durability is absolutely everything.
And hey, look at this. We have a new champion. Falken takes the top spot with a score of 818, which is way above the average. BF Goodrich, a classic name you'd expect to see here, comes in a strong second, with Hankook grabbing third. It just goes to show that in this really rugged category, a different set of priorities leads to a different winner. Okay, so after all that data, what are the big takeaways? What does this all mean for you? Whether you already own an EV, you're shopping for a car, or you're just curious about where all this is headed?
So here's the bottom line. If you have an EV right now, the main thing is to just adjust your expectations. Your tires probably aren't going to last as long. If you're shopping for a new car, you now get this really important trade-off between range and tire life. For the industry, well, the race is on to create better EV-specific tires. But maybe the most important thing here is education. Dealers need to explain this stuff, and buyers need to start asking the right questions.
And all of this leaves us with one final and I think pretty critical question. The EV revolution is happening, and it is happening fast. The cars are already here. But can the humble tire, a piece of technology that's been slowly evolving for over a century, innovate fast enough to keep up? The answer to that is really going to determine how happy millions of drivers are for years to come.